Welcome to the number one show and the source of truth for all things MedTech. Here, we reveal the secrets and stories behind the investments, science, and commercialization of the MedTech industry. Every week, we'll take you on a wild ride with the biggest names in the game, from entrepreneurs and investors who are shaking up the market to healthcare providers who are revolutionizing the way we think and practice medicine. So hold on tight and get ready for a journey like no other. This is the State of MedTech. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to State of MedTech's President's Club series where we essentially take the top performers who have made it into President's Club and deconstruct the disciplines, mindsets, habits, diets, strategies, tactics, everything under the sun that helped contribute to them achieving quota, and then more importantly, doing it so well, so consistently that they break into the prestigious President's Club. Now, I recently did a poll, and I was looking through all the followers on our Instagram handle, All Hail Medical Sales. If you don't follow it, definitely follow it. All Hail Medical Sales is a combination of medical sales, inspiration, education, plus memes. Lots of memes, and more importantly, because of the stories featured, I put a lot of stories out on medical sale on the All Hail Medical Sales handle, polling users or polling the followers. I guess some of them are users because they use my program and educational products. But it's a great place where I get to interact directly with med reps. And so one of the people who actually reached out to come on the show was Alycia Stiles Grandt. So Alycia has a fantastic background. Let me tell you a little bit about it. So first of all, the most important thing is the accolades, which you do what you do not to get awards, but then to get onto this series, you have to show some awards. So for her, she's won President's Club not once, but 2 times in 5 years, including ROTY. Plus, according to Alycia, and I don't think this has been announced yet, so I don't want to jump the gun here, but she might be on track to achieve her 3rd President's Club this year, just based on numbers and everything. She currently works for Medtronic's Advanced Surgical Division. And an interesting fact about her is that she was actually always in marketing as a product manager before she actually carried the bag. So she had 0 sales experience and then moved over from marketing to get into sales. And she's just been absolutely crushing it. She started off at Medtronic as a global product manager, then went over to Edwards Life Sciences as product manager, again. Then product manager over at CR Bard, which is now owned by BD. So essentially, she spent the first 7-8 years of her career in product management, right? And then decided to move over into the sales side, which is when she joined Medtronic. She's been there for over 5 years now, soon to have her 6-year anniversary. So this episode is about her best tips and tactics in terms of the mindsets, the disciplines it takes to become a President's Club winner and crush quota. Now, before we jump to the episode, I have some goodies for you guys in the show notes. So let me kind of walk you through that. So first of all, I want to give a big shout out, of course, to my partner this quarter, Clary. Clary is this amazing software company that is designing the category of revenue, collaboration, and governance. And so essentially, when it comes to Salesforce CRM, we all hate it. Nobody ever hit quota because of Salesforce, right? Clary is an AI-based company that goes with Salesforce. So if your company invests in Salesforce, Clary plugs into it and then essentially automates the data inputs and entries that need to go into Salesforce, right? So that way, reps are able to, more importantly, understand what activities will contribute to growing pipeline. Sales leaders will be able to predict revenue with extreme accuracy. And most importantly, you're able to run revenue. So now I have a very exciting event coming up with Clary on Tuesday, July 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Their Senior Vice President of Marketing, Kyle Coleman, who's a legend in the SaaS field, is joining the show. And they're actually going to make public this playbook that they show me. So the title of this webinar is going to be, how do you boost sales performance in MedTech, whether it's healthcare, life sciences, no matter what part of MedTech you are in, with improved revenue cadence, right? And so the essential idea is that ask yourself this one question. Are you going to meet, beat, or miss your sales target? The answer to this probably can be found in your revenue cadence, right? The important sales moments that are found with your reps, customers, and executives. And so Clary has learned from the best sales organizations around the world to establish this revenue cadence playbook. It's really in-depth and impressive. I think it may have taken them almost a full year to put this together. And when I looked at it, I asked them, I said, because I think originally they were sharing this with their customers. And I said, hey guys, I really would like to do a webinar about this. And so I kind of twisted their arm. Of course, they're great partners, and they decided, yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. And so in this webinar, you're going to learn about how do you improve your team performance, how do you retain and expand your customer base. And again, as that relates to MedTech, the whole idea is utilization there. And then more importantly, better forecasting your outcomes, right? Whether you're a startup or a publicly traded company, one of the most difficult conversations is when you're talking to your board every quarter and trying to predict your revenue and pipeline. And so Clary is the experts when it comes to this. So check the show notes below. Again, that webinar is happening on July 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're going to miss that live, don't worry. Go ahead and register for that webinar so that way you get the email afterwards with the recording. You can watch it afterwards. And if you are a sales rep, a director, a sales leader or founder, and you guys have invested in Salesforce, you want to protect your investment. More importantly, you want to get something out of it. We've all invested in Salesforce expecting to get something and it didn't turn out what we want it to be. I really recommend getting a demo with Clary. They do this amazing revenue analysis. Even if you're early stage and you haven't quite invested in Salesforce, if you're starting to think about how do you run revenue, how do you do revenue operations, predict pipeline, manage sales activity, all these things that are required to run a highly successful sales organization, please go, book time with Clary again. So if you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to register for the webinar. Below that, you'll see another link to get a demo with them. So go ahead and click that link, or if you want, go to clary.com. That's CLARI.com. You can book time with them there. But I do recommend the link down below because that one's specifically for healthcare. And I think because they get so many demo requests, that'll actually shortcut your way. That way you can book time with their team even sooner. Now, 2 more tiny announcements. Again, these are all giveaways and offers I always like to give to the people who specifically listen to this podcast. We're in that time of year, my friends, where again it's crunch time, for your company and your sales organization because we're in the second half of the year. But also, many of you might be looking for a new opportunity, right? So whether you're trying to look for a new opportunity or just find a better, more effective way to start selling, you've heard me talk about it a lot. This is a new way of selling and, of course, marketing yourself in your career, and that is leveraging LinkedIn. I have a mini course called the LinkedIn Profile Upgrade. This is a small miniature course I put together. You learn some basics on psychology and persuasion, some basics about your profile, but more importantly, how do you position and upgrade your profile so you can attract potential hiring managers, get better connected with your customers, and do so much more. This course is normally about $300, but because you're listening to this podcast, you're going to get a massive discount. So go to Upgrade, www.upgrademylinkedin.com. That's www.upgrademylinkedin.com, and use the code SALESPODCAST, and you're going to get 67% off, and you're going to get the course for only $98. Okay. And lastly, I put together a new webinar. It's an automated webinar. You can watch it anytime you want. And this new one is talking about how to 10x your pipeline using LinkedIn. It goes into the data, both qualitatively and quantitatively, a lot of tactics and strategies. And for the first time ever, to get into my main program, which is the Medical Sales Network Effects program. That program teaches you how to sell at scale using LinkedIn, using email. We have a private group, which has been a great resource for people to network, hire others, find jobs. We have live calls every week. That is my top tier premium program. Well, you used to have to apply to that. You used to have to get on a call with me. I'm at a point now where I've decided to open the program up. And so if you look in the show notes below, click the link and go watch that webinar. And in that same webinar page, you'll learn a lot from the webinar, but you'll also learn about the course, and you'll be able to purchase the course right there on your own. Or go to my website, khateebandco.com, click the webinar tab, and you'll see the webinar there. So with that being said, let's get on to our episode with Alycia Stiles Grandt. Enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. So one of the things about the show is we have a lot of really big names that come on the show. Like, Stryker president Jim Heath, former Medtronic CEO Bill George been on the show. But, at the end of the day, like, we want to, talk to people who are actually like in the job right now, right? Some of these sales leaders, they haven't, been in a hospital or sold directly in over a decade or so. And so for that reason, through our fantastic Instagram handle, if you're not following it, All Hail Medical Sales, where we do all things sales related. And of course, a lot of memes, lots and lots of memes. We have Alycia Stiles Grandt with us. Alycia, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you
Fantastic.
today?
I know we just went through, but it's pronounced Alycia, right?
Yep, Alycia.
Got it.
Perfect.
Alycia, got it. Fantastic. So, Alycia, like, you've been a rep for a long time. Currently, you are over at Medtronic, and you've won multiple Presidents Clubs, lots of awards, and so maybe just a little background, like where are you originally from? How did you get into medical sales?
Ooh, it's fun. It's been a really fun path. It's also been a non-traditional path. I would be what's considered a very non-traditional sales hire. So I started carrying the bag in med device sales, not having any previous sales experience. My exposure to medical device was through a marketing lens. So I started my career as one of those memes that you love to make fun of, a really young 22-year-old marketer.
I think we all are there. We were all that at one point, right?
Right. Well, I was very much that. Loved, really multiple different companies worked for in marketing capacities. Super fun to launch amazing products and work with the field. And you would just meet some of those sales mentors that when they spoke, everybody listened because they had the clinical background. They've been in those tough moments. In those amazing moments, there's just something different about the level of credibility. And I had a wonderful mentor who I still keep in touch with, who was just like, you can be a good marketer, but you'll never be great until you've carried the bag. And so it was never the right time, family, things changing. And then all of a sudden it was the right time. And so I went all in for a role. And that was over 5 years ago. I've not looked back. 2 Presidents Club awards, including Rookie of the Year my first year, and possibly a 3rd Presidents Club that will get announced in August.
That's awesome. So Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you started off, I saw, with Covidian, right?
I did. Legacy Covidian energy-based devices.
That's amazing. Covidian, I mean, I'll say I'm hoping we see more transformative acquisitions like that. But just for context for everybody, when Covidian got acquired by Medtronic, I think that was a $48 billion all-cash deal. That was huge. I mean, these days, a transformative acquisition is usually like anything. I say anything above 4 or 5 billion. But like, it's been a while since we've seen like acquisitions that big. I don't know if we'll see another one soon. I mean, I don't know. Right Medical, I think, got acquired by Stryker for like 6 billion. So that was pretty big. But like 48 billion all cash, I was like, wow. I was like, they are not messing around.
Different ball game. I remember where I was when I heard the acquisition news. I was working for Edwards Life Sciences at the time, and we're actually walking into a case. And I'd gotten the alert, and I just went, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm looking at all the.
Did you get equity when you were with Covidian?
Oh, not much, not enough.
That's okay. Hey,
that's okay.
Still plenty of time. You have a great career, so that all that can happen.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about you won Rookie of the Year. What do you think, if you had to boil it down to 3 things, what are the 3 things that helped you win Rookie of the Year?
Hustle. Hustle is number 1, and it's hustle and accountability, and really just have to be relentless. And I know that sounds cliche, but I cover a pretty large geography that includes a lot of mountain driving in the Colorado region. And I remember I also have a wonderful husband who's so supportive, and that was my goal. That was nonstop. That's what we were driving towards, everything. So no matter how tired I was or exhausted or even sales is a roller coaster, right? Sometimes you have those days where you're right on top, and others you're dragging. And I just had really great support around me to just stay focused. And if I don't hear my name called on stage, know that I gave it everything I could have. Instead of asking like, could I have made that drive one more time? Could I have gotten one more thing done? That's just the type of relentless accountability that I have for myself. And fortunately, with a bunch of other things, my territory was in pretty good shape when I took it over, and I grew it over by 30% that rookie year. And when you hit numbers that big, you're going to make an impact. So
that's amazing.
It was a fun start, a really fun start.
I want to dive into this concept of relentless. So like for the readers in the audience, one book I recommend is Relentless by Tim Grove, who was the trainer and coach for Michael Jordan, right? But when you talk about being relentless, like, can you give me an example? Like, what does that mean?
I think it's just really not giving up. Okay, if I'm looking at this solution and I don't have it, maybe I walked in here for one reason and that's not going to work. Do I just walk away or do I pivot? Because I think that's the biggest thing that the field has taught me compared to a marketing background. Is marketing is, this is the plan and this is what we're going to do. We all know that you can have a plan for the OR for how the case is going to go, and then the wheels can fall off. And it's that pivot and that ability to pivot with products, with solutions, with different doctors, different champions, really understanding where the hospital's at. That is the relentless piece that I really had great exposure to in seeing firsthand.
Mm-hmm. How did you start your weeks and days? Did you do any planning? Did you just kind of what does that look like?
Early, very early, like all of us. Okay. A lot of coffee. So it's really identifying your biggest relationships and biggest upside, biggest potential. I also had still have the most amazing manager I've ever worked for. And that was consistent cadence. And I'm thinking about this opportunity, this account, this surgeon. This is what I think the upside is. And this is the timing I think I can get it done. So I like to structure my days. I'm really, really heavy in case support, Monday through Wednesday and Thursday. Friday's kind of an office day, but also the schedule's always open and things come up and things change. And hey, we need you on the other side of the state for this giant thoracic case tomorrow. Can you be there? So it was really that flexibility, which drove my spouse nuts. But again, it comes to the support of just being adaptable and being able to make changes really quickly.
Got it.
I'm not as organized as some sales reps are. I'm just not. I don't have a sales background. Some of my teammates come from an ADP background, and they are amazing because they're such trained sales professionals. So I'm always learning and taking great notes when I work with them. I just think about it differently.
I see. So, you've won some President's Clubs before. What do you think were the biggest contributors to that? I mean, it helps having like really good accounts and everything, but like, what do you think the biggest difference, if you were to look at your peers, so like Medtronic, it's kind of like playing for the Yankees, right? It's like world's largest and most powerful medical device company in the world. You've been there for a while for a reason. What do you think the common thread is with President's Club winners, aside from like they all have a type A, really relentless personality, but like what else do you think goes into becoming a President's Club winner?
It's a good question. In my experience, it was hardware. So I have a capital component to my bag. And capital, if you have a mix of disposables and capital is maybe one of those things that's really easy to neglect because it's not immediate. Whereas with the marketing background, I'm not exaggerating when I say it would take 6 months to get a brochure approved. So I'm very used to a painful cross-functional, you have to bird dog this piece through the process. I'm already wired that way. And that actually translates really well to capital sales. Yeah. And so big capital deals are how I not only drove the disposable number, because that's important during the day, but what did I use that Friday for every week? Was I neglecting expense reports? Absolutely. No, I was chasing capital deals. So
yeah, no, it makes sense. And there's something to be said there. I'm happy you said that. It's the first time I heard that. It makes a lot of sense because I think for sale, as a salesperson, and look, I'm a salesperson. Technically, like for me, my disposables for my company now are like my digital courses, right? Those are quick, easy wins. My capital deals are these like large enterprise deals, right? And it's human nature. It's really easy to neglect the things that take a long time but pay off later, because the short or the short and easy ones, it's kind of like drugs. It's just like really real quick, easy, like dopamine hits, makes you feel good. Like in the entrepreneur or small business world, like we always joke that like for us, the equivalent of that was like consulting. It's like it's just like doing cheap drugs. It's like, man, it's just like it feels good. It's like easy money and everything. But the real deals come from the things that take longer, right? Yes. And so it sounds like Friday is a really important office day, because I guess for the most part, usually Fridays are pretty slow case days. They're usually slow for the week. Even me, my Fridays are structured more around like thinking time, right? So tell me, like, how do you structure your day on Friday? Like, is there a specific way you like to do it? Is it kind of ad hoc?
It's pretty ad hoc. I wish I could say I'm more structured in my approach. I think I am. I'm probably unconsciously competent in my structuring. But Friday would be checking in on capital deals, right? And so capital does require you to work with different parts of the hospital. You have to have not only your surgical advocates, but are you close with the director of the OR? Do you know the VP of Surgical Services? And another way that I found capital to be very successful was just identifying similar needs across the same system, or even just similar needs within the hospital. Labor and delivery, for example, needs new equipment. So does the operating room. Hey, if you guys bulk this together, you both win. I appreciate those types of that type of information as a consumer. Why would I not help to pass that in and just pass that along to customers? So that's where I try to think a little bit more strategic. And so my call point is typically general surgery. The cath lab also uses pieces of my equipment, but that's really just not a traditional rep for the business that I'm in. But neglecting that is silly. So on average, there could be as many as 30 different reps from my same company in a hospital at any given moment. If I'm not leveraging cross-divisional, cross-functional relationships, then I'm really missing opportunities. So Friday is about relationships. It's about following up. And it's so much easier to ask for something if it's not the first time you're meeting somebody. So that's at least my approach to sales. Nobody likes to be asked for something when they just met you.
100%. And I think that's such a great point because, for me being a startup guy, I'm used to selling capital equipment without contracts. I've never in my entire career had a reimbursement code, and so I think one of the benefits of working at a place like Medtronic is that you have a very strong peer network. And I think I've never heard of that before, but it makes so much sense, which is like, if you're in a hospital, there are other places where there's money. And so are you leveraging the peer network you have to get into those areas? Plus, at least from a career standpoint, the way I think about it is that not only are you, growing your business, growing revenue, right? But you're also getting exposure to these different areas, because maybe later in your career, either you switch companies, maybe you switch divisions, maybe you go from gen surge to, let's say, more the cath lab or some other department. Yeah. So I think these are great ways to get exposure to the environment, the call points, etc. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think you're doing yourself and your career a disservice if you're looking at one tree instead of the forest. There's too much changing in healthcare, and there's so many different disease states. There's so many different reps out there. You would be silly to not try to mingle and meet someone might have a relationship with somebody you're trying to work with who keeps slamming the door. You're not going to find that out unless you host a happy hour. Like it's really not that complicated, and you never know. You definitely won't close anything or move any relationships forward if you don't even try. So you might 100%. As well try.
No, 100%. 100%. Tell me, we all as reps, we all have that one story, like just like this, I always joke, like, you're not a rep until you get thrown out of the room, or at least like, at the minimum, like a surgeon getting angry. Like if that's never happened, like you haven't been in the job that long. What was a great example of a story like that where you had a major mess up, but it taught you something, you grew from it?
Oh man.
Whatever that one you just thought of right now, that's the one you need to tell.
I think it's reading the room, and all we can do is read the room, and sometimes that's not even enough.
What does that mean when you say read the room? Tell me more.
When something is tense and something is going wrong, and that is not the time to crack a joke or try to give advice. Some surgeons would love advice, and others, the one I'm thinking of, he actually blew up at my teammate, so it wasn't me, but it was just kind of my teammate wasn't reading the room, and so he comes over and breaks scrub, and my teammate's trying to talk to him and like calm him down, and he just looks at me and goes, "You know what I need?" And my teammate's like, "What do you need?" No one to fucking talk to me right now, and stares out of the room. So it's just, surgeons can go from bad to worse really quickly because that's their job. If that was me on the table or my family member on the table, I would hope that they share that same level of concern and OCD and absolute freak out.
Absolutely.
I did. So humor is typically how I handle stress, right? I am a person who would make a joke. Usually I'm my favorite material to make a joke at, but that can go backwards really quickly.
Yeah. And I think being able to read the room is super, super important.
Yep.
And, there's a surgeon, one of the surgeons that I know, actually, funny enough, so like in my program, the Medical Sales Network Effects program, he's actually one of the first doctors to go through. For some reason, a lot of surgeons are going through my program, which, by the way, for those who are listening, I'm releasing this week actually a digital opinion leadership program for physicians, starting first with orthopedic surgeons, but we'll have others. But Dr. Michael Verdon's a neurosurgeon. We talked about this, about as a surgeon, like getting really upset. And, one of his reps, told him one time, like, oh, hey, I don't think people appreciate it when you get upset about certain things, and his thing is like, well, I have every right to, because I'm the one taking on all the liability. And if things aren't done in a certain way, the person we're operating on dies. So
exactly,
you know what I mean? And I think people have to understand that.
Yep. This is high stakes poker. Yes. So another, in those moments where something is going wrong, that's the question of can you help or not? Like, do you truly have a solution? And if you do, you need to articulate it as clearly and simply as possible. And if you don't have a solution, then you just need to be honest and straight up. Like, I don't understand why that is not performing the way it should. I'm going to go grab another one. Like, it just, don't try to sugarcoat anything. I think you just need to give it to someone straight so that we can make plans.
Absolutely.
Fortunately, I have not had too many of those,
that's good. Well, you don't strike me as the kind for some reason. I'm pretty good at reading it. I myself, on the other hand, am definitely the one where, like, I did very, very well in my career, but earlier on, maybe because I'm a little bit like, not that I take risks. I think a lot of entrepreneurship and innovation comes with your how high of a threshold are you willing to be publicly humiliated? So early in my career, there were some risks that I took, didn't work out so well. But no, I think, reading the room is definitely comes with age, and I don't think,
yes.
and unless you're lucky enough, like at least me early on, I had some older reps who were with me and they coached me ahead of time. Like, hey, when this is happening, like, just don't say or do anything. Unless that happens when you're younger, like, you're not good at that, and your first inclination is to, like, speak up or get into action or try and do something. And a lot of times it's just like, don't do anything, don't say anything, right?
Correct. Yes. An analogy I will use in kind of working with younger reps, it's because, like, well, how do you know when to say something or not? I said, you know what? That intuition will come with time. It's no different than a pilot going for a pilot's license. You have to have so many flight hours. It's the same as standing in the OR. There isn't a course or a magic book that's going to teach you how to read that room. It will come with experience and standing in cases. There's no other way around it.
How earlier in your career, did you take advantage of, like, shadowing cases outside of your own? Like,
yes.
Talk a little bit through that. Like,
yes.
First of all, why do that? And then how did you go about doing it?
So even in marketing, I was watching cases as a marketer because that's what my mentor was really passionate about doing. He said, you have to see how these devices and get comfortable with understanding the OR, what the flow is, what the hierarchy is with staff in the OR. You have to understand those things. So I had already had some familiarity with the OR before taking the job in sales, but my sales process is definitely slower and different than one of my, like, ADP luck killer teammates, but it's what works for me. And I think that as soon as you stop being you, then something, the wheels kind of fall off. If you're not being authentic in who you are, anybody can pick up on that from a mile away. So something I did, and part of that rookie year and that long grind, is that there were absolutely instances where I was guilty of maybe not being effective with my time because I was standing in cases, just trying to get clinical experience, build relationships, and really just understand and build those flight hours. So something that I typically do when I'm meeting with a new surgeon. I'm not a scrub sink seller. I don't. Some people can pull that off. That's not me. I would rather take the time to meet them at their office, learn more about their practice. What do they do? What do they like? Can I come observe you for cases? I'm either going to see something. I know what I'm looking for. I'm either going to see it or not. And I'm not going to make a recommendation on something until I truly have a clinical merit and a place that's appropriate to do so. I think surgeons appreciate that. Just not walking around just a hammer looking for a nail. I just want to be a little bit more strategic about how I position certain solutions. And at the end of the day, I think that makes the relationship stronger and you're a more valued clinical partner.
Absolutely. And if anything, you're seen more as a clinical peer than like a rep, right?
Yes. It's not that difficult. And there is kind of that eagerness to, yes, I'd love to have you in my room. Let's meet this new person. Tell me your background. So I go, okay, I'll tell you some of my background. Tell me your background. There's so much relationships and personal dialogue that happens, and you can't get there if you don't show up. You know where they're going to be standing for how many hours? Go stand with them.
100%. I think like probably one of the, like when I was a rep for Mazor, which is a robotic spine company, Medtronic acquired them. You know, yes, I remember like one of the big highlights of my career was when, you know, I knew that I was developing a lot of clinical respect from surgeons, and there was a surgeon that I went and covered, and I remember towards the end of the case, a surgeon, you know, and this guy's a neurosurgeon, really well respected. He was one of those like high volume guys, and he looks up and he goes, "Hey Omar, you know, thanks for covering the case today. You know, I'm just wondering." You know, and he said this in front of the team while he's like closing up. He's like, "Do you have any recommendations? Like, how did we do as a team? Do you have any recommendations for me? How can we improve?" And I was like, "Wow! First of all, yeah, exactly, chef's kiss, yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's
for one
special moment.
It is. It says a lot about the surgeon, but then at the same time, I was really proud of myself. I'm like, wow, the way I communicated, the way I said things, my flow." You know, and I think, I don't know, like, did you ever like earlier on, like rehearse things on your own, like how you would say them and everything? Like, how did you prepare for cases?
I would study the
There's no right or
steps.
wrong answer to this, by the way.
Right, I know.
I needed to do that, but everybody's different,
yeah.
You know?
I definitely would familiarize myself with the procedure. What are the surgical steps? Kind of what's the flow, right? So I'm thinking 2 steps ahead of where we're at and the direction we're heading, but not in terms of rehearsing how I'm going to articulate a feature about my breath. That's not me. It would more just, I would just ask open-ended questions or probing questions.
What are some great, some of your favorite like probing questions or open-ended questions you ask?
Depends what's there's
got to be some go-to ones where you're like, you know, this is always a good one. Like, I'll give you one. This is the most common question, which by the way, I personally don't like it because every rep asks this question when they meet a surgeon, which is like, hey, like, what's your bread and butter case? Or what's the most common case? Like, that's kind of like, you know, it's a good question, but you know, but what are some great questions you like?
You've been clearly doing this procedure for a long time. Are there elements that frustrate you, or what are your main concerns?
That's a great question. Why do you ask that?
I might have something to alleviate that concern. If you think about the technique is from when they were in residency or fellowship. Times have changed. Technology has changed. We might, maybe I have seen another provider operate in a different facility who handles that step a little bit differently. And maybe it alleviates that.
What I like about the way you ask that question is that the same question can be asked, like, what do you wish was better, right? The reason why I like yours is like, so there's what do you wish was better versus what frustrates you about this. It's the same question. Yours is way better, more persuasive, and I'll share why. Because yours focuses on an emotion. Because if you think about what do you wish was better, you start thinking about like features, whatever. Better. When you say what frustrates you, you immediately go to an emotion, and they're going to say the thing that frustrates them the most, which means that when you provide the solution or the pain relief for that, it's just a lot more persuasive. So even that subtle thing, right? As somebody who's a previous President's Club winner, has been doing this for a while, like those little subtleties and nuances make all the difference.
Marketing, baby. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Well, look, it's funny you say that because, like, Alycia, like if you look at a lot of what I teach and even my own course, I'm actually teaching salespeople how to think and scale like marketers, right? Which is the language used is very, very important, right? The way you deploy things is the way to scale things, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that unfortunately in our industry, there's this great book I'm reading called Pendulum, which talks about the change in society. It happens every, I think I'm still reading the book, but like every 40 years, there's a whole pendulum thing, and for our industry, our pendulum is that the old way used to be very much just drive heavy with sales, right? It's like your product getting into a hospital was pretty much dependent on a rep having a relationship, getting to the hospital and just like forcing it through. Doesn't like marketing. That's why it was just like product management, right? The change now is that just doesn't work. That even who is it? Matt Dixon, who wrote The Challenger Sale, which is a great book. He even admits that like the Challenger Sale isn't exactly applicable the way it used to be, So you just have to have a different approach,
The expression that my team hears a lot is chess, not checkers.
How
are we thinking strategically about everything? Again, don't look at just a tree. Look at the whole forest.
I completely agree. So let me ask you, and maybe, I don't know if this is a good question to ask you, but like, you being a Medtronic, you probably could get plenty of new products and everything. So like finding the right adopter for a new product is super important. How important do you think it is when it comes to like case and surgeon selection, when it comes to like a new product?
Oh, that's everything. That is everything. And that is the lost art of a product introduction. It's understanding what frustrates them, what that pain point is clinically, the flow of the room. And when you have the hammer to fix that nail, that's going to be really fun. So selection is everything. And I don't appreciate sometimes when I get the message of, well, anyone could do this. This tool could be used anywhere. You go, oh, that's coming from someone who really hasn't been thoughtful about that introduction. But the right champion makes all the difference. It's going to help smooth over the attitude of staff. Positive clinical outcomes are absolutely the goal. If you're targeting the worst surgeon in the hospital with your brand new product and the wheels fall off, you have no one to blame but yourself because you didn't think more strategically about who you worked with for that. And I think that is a go slow to go fast moment that reps should consider a little bit more.
Importance of like taking a second to really think through what you're about to do, who you're dealing with, etc. Do you feel like that's a lot? It goes back to your marketing background, which is like, hey, before I do anything, like let's think this through.
Yeah. Can we get this statement approved? Can this claim get approved? Probably not. Or just, yes, what you want to do and then what you can do are very different in med device marketing because of regulatory, legal, compliance, the field. How will that message translate for an international audience? How can you train to it? There's so many pieces in that cross-functional wheel that really do translate to sales because you should be thinking about not just a one-track mind of I'm going to work with this surgeon and this is the thing I'm going to sell them and that's it. Look at the whole picture. And that's actually how you entrench yourself as that consultant, as that person who a surgeon would ask, how do you think we did today? That's such a compliment to you of, wow, the respect is there, seeing the whole picture. That's how you completely differentiate yourself as a rep. And I think you'd be silly not to do this. And it doesn't matter if you're a rep or you stay in marketing, these relationships. And for example, one of my surgeons is starting to work with a competitive company. And he's like, oh, are you upset about that? I said, listen, if you don't talk to me in 20 years, then I failed as a human. And that's really what I am focused on. I'm focused on the long-term picture here. And I don't know what that looks like, but 20 years from now, if you don't talk to me, then I screwed up. So that's just the type of time scale that I try to operate on, which can be frustrating when you're told you need to hit this quarter, or I get that. The mixed messaging can be difficult, but if you can filter that out and really just what's the right thing to do here, long term.
Mm-hmm.
I always am focused on the relationship, and the right thing is always the right thing.
Look, I totally agree. And look, at the end of the day, you have to hit a number. But here's the thing. And again, is okay with, let's say, the surgeon you talk to, could you have gone and pushed hard and be like, hey, I don't want you, like, could you have done that and maybe won that business and hit the number that quarter? Yeah, you could have. Is that worth risking the business for the next 3 years? Probably not. And I think that's the big thing. Again, look, I run my own company. I still do sales myself. You have to hit numbers, but at the same time, like, you have to think like, okay, there's some times where it's totally appropriate to push. There are other times it's like, is it really worth me risking this sale or this deal or this relationship, right? Because that could change real quick, real quick.
Yes. And again, the right thing is the right thing. So there are a ton of different ways to hit that number. Are you going to go all in and risk the relationship?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
and,
not how I'm wired.
And like, look, I really like to think about like leverage. Leverage is a big thing for me. And so, like for those who are interviewing, and looking for a new job, one thing I tell people is like, hey, look, apply to jobs you're not going to take, because at least in your own head, if you're interviewing at all these different places, like, you've kind of taken the pressure off, versus if you interview at just one place, you're putting all this pressure there. You don't have leverage at that point, because that's like, it's either that or nothing. And I think with you, when it comes to thinking about where else in the hospital can I pick up revenue, it's like, okay, you know what? I can offset some lost revenue here with the revenue here. Then you're a lot more calm and collected, and you are in a position of power and influence when it's like, hey, I'm using your competitor. No problem. That's totally okay. That's a lot more persuasive and a much more powerful position to be in, and a better mental frame than if all your business is on this one doctor, and then like the moment they just sneeze and do something different, you're like, hey, did I do something wrong? Well, why are you using them? It's just like, it's so needy.
Nobody likes needy.
Oh. Nobody likes needy.
No one likes
Nobody
needy.
likes needy.
Needy gets classified as crazy. like I don't want to do that. No. Yeah. It's all eggs in one basket, right? Another awesome expression among my team is, when you're starting to build things, whether it's either capital related or disposable, we'll make a joke. Do we have quota next year? Oh yeah, we do. Do we have quota next quarter? Oh yeah, we do. So that's why you can't sweat highs and lows. It's there are high highs and lows in the job. Kind of staying in the middle and just being that partner, keeping an eye on things. It will be okay.
I totally agree.
All the ups and downs.
So one of the things about being a rep, because we spend a lot of time out in the field, and so it's kind of like you're going off in the wilderness, like being out on the road and everything. So there's all kinds of like hacks and tips and tricks. Like, what are some of your favorite tips and tricks? Whether it's like things you like to carry into cases with you, the way you travel, like what are some tips or tricks that you got for our fellow reps? You've been doing this for a while. I know you got some good ones. Right?
A lot of windshield time. And so that's the question is, do you use windshield time to fill your professional bucket or your personal bucket? And very early in my career, I was very focused on the professional bucket. Ryan Searhant is a real estate developer.
He's great.
He's great. So Ryan's Sell It Like Searhant was like the audiobook I kept listening to through all these drives, and I could download it because there are parts of my territory where there's absolutely no cell phone service. So that was a great professional bucket. As I am more comfortable in the territory, know the job, I actually use windshield time to fill my personal bucket. And so I'm making calls to family, to friends that I maybe don't get a chance to connect with. I'm also reaching out to other colleagues, current colleagues, former colleagues, mentors. That is the time that, because I'm not going anywhere, captive audience in my car. So that is something I use for the windshield time is, which bucket am I filling? Am I working on a new skill, listening to a podcast, or am I reaching out to family and to friends and building other relationships and connections in a way that maybe I typically can't prioritize during the day?
No, absolutely. And I think, I'm happy you mentioned the personal side, because I think it's really important. A lot of reps who are out there, especially younger ones, they're single, they moved out to middle of nowhere without family and everything. And, there's a rep recently who, she was dealing with a big recall And, this is a big recall. So she did the right thing. She walked the competitor into every account to make sure. I mean, I wrote about it on LinkedIn. I was really proud of her. But one of the things I told her, I'm like, look, if this huge recall happened, like maybe you want to consider like this is a time to kind of look up, not saying you have to, but like check out some new opportunities maybe. And she's like, no, I really don't want to do it. I'm like, why not? And the reason why was that she had sort of developed like these strong friendships and relationships with her accounts. And she's like, they're like a family. And I'm like, oh, you don't want to be in that. I'm like, you have to find life outside of work. Otherwise you can't make good decisions for yourself, There's
an interesting, I think it's a TED Talk on that concept of work is like a family. And
nothing makes me run for the hills than when I hear especially these Silicon Valley tech companies like, oh, we're like a family. Google is really like a family until they need some money, and they're like, let's just lay off people who've been here for 10 or 15 years. It's really like a family, guys.
Correct. Yes. So there's a TED Talk where a woman talks about this and how toxic that comment is. Family, you will go above and beyond for family because it's family. Their boundaries are mixed and blurred differently because it's family. I have a family. I have 2 kids, amazing spouse. That is my family. Work is, I'm on an amazing team. The best part about President's Club is going to President's Club with your whole team.
Oh, that must be cool.
But, I'm so excited. It'll be fun.
When is President's Club for you guys?
It will be in November. So everything will get announced in August. We're having a really large national training meeting, which is very exciting. Our business has not been together nationally since 2018.
Oh, wow. And in November, they do it at headquarters or where do they do it?
So the trip is in November, but the meeting is actually going to be out on the West Coast.
Oh, nice. Nice.
No.
I should hit up good old Jeff and be like, hey, man, where are you guys doing the meeting? Maybe I'll swing by.
Right? Jeff.
Okay.
And then, so Mike Marinero is our new executive vice president of surgical.
Yeah, I heard a lot of really good things about him, by the way. I should reach out to him, have him on my show. I heard a lot of really good things about him.
He is a sales guy by background. So yes,
yes,
you should.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll have to
he's
coordinate
really cool.
that.
I had a chance to connect with him a few weeks ago when he was out here in Colorado.
Very cool.
It's a good group, but again, back to family. Like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, we're still here to do a job. You have to have that life outside of the job. The job is so much fun. And there are your OR families and people that you really, friends that you keep in touch with, cultivate those relationships. Absolutely. But there is, you have to still keep your oxygen mask on first.
I know. I totally agree. So
as a parent, you get that.
Yeah.
I have a totally different perspective on that.
Absolutely. And, by the way, shout out to our spouses though, because people don't realize one of the, at least not that I got, getting married wasn't a business decision, but in business, one of the most important decisions you're going to make is the person you choose as a spouse, because they're going to dictate a lot. My wife does not give me any flack for how much time I have to spend working, the hours I spend. And of course, me as a spouse, I don't take advantage of it. I realize okay, I need to pull the plug on things at 6 o'clock. I need to do this and that. But MedRep life is not easy. This is why on All Hail Medical Sales Instagram page, first line, it's celebrating the hardest sales job on planet Earth. And it's true. It is the hardest sales job.
Yes. Yeah. All of the success, it's Alycia, all the success. I have a fantastic partner. And that's, at the end of the day, he's my number one. He keeps me grounded, keeps me focused, and also puts up with this crazy, crazy world that we're in.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, as we kind of wrap things up, I got a fun section that I like to do from time to time, and that's kind of rapid fire questions. So you get to take as long as you want of these questions or as short as you want. So first question is, in the last year, what's a really cool Amazon purchase you made? It could be anything.
Yes. Okay. Got it. Really recently, we got this electronic fly swatter that's like a tennis racket.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah. Yeah.
It comes in a 2-pack. Just say yes. Add to cart.
It's just, yeah. So it's like a tennis racket, but they blow up practically.
Yes.
Yeah.
For mosquitoes, wasps, flies. Highly
Amazing.
Suggest.
Amazing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Good question.
Next question. Continuing education is a big part of being in medicine, not just a medical sales rep, but our customers, physicians. Continuing education is everything. what's a book or podcast that you feel like you recommend most often? You're a reader, so I can ask you what book do you feel is something you recommend a lot to people?
I like, have you heard of Enneagram?
Yes, I have heard of Enneagram.
Enneagram personality type testing. It's Myers-Briggs, but with more data. Enneagram is fascinating for me, understanding what someone's Enneagram is, because it's knowing what their core motivators are. How does a person respond in stress, and how do they respond in growth? It's fascinating when you really start to kind of personality type your team or your customers. I cannot recommend that. There's Challenger, there's DISC, there's Clifton Strengths. There's so many of these. Enneagram hits differently for me because it really does help me understand how I'm feeling and responding to things when I'm stressed or when I'm in a period of growth, and then also how to segment and type others. Enneagram is like the keys to psychological kingdom of people. So I would recommend looking into that.
I think I think the more people understand personality, psychology, motives, biases, like it makes it a lot easier when you're selling, writing an email, so many things. I mean, my own course, like I think the most popular section, it's the first section, is like persuasion psychology for a reason, right? So, okay, awesome. Great recommendation. So last couple of questions. This one's a tough one. It's actually not a rapid fire, so I'm sorry, but I want to ask you this. Let's pretend that for the next year, I take out a billboard and a text notification that every rep, they're going to see this notification on their phone. They're going to see this billboard when they're walking to the hospital throughout the country. What message do you put on that billboard?
I hope it's something funny, right?
You can go with that.
Something comedic relief, right? I think all the things that that reps have managed in the last year with back orders, supply chain, staff turnover. It's been whack-a-mole across the board for challenges. So something to the tune of, "You're doing great. You're doing amazing, sweetie. I see you. You're trying to keep the wheels on. It's been difficult. Just keep going." I don't know. I need to think about it longer to have a much more, but something funny, something with a meme of like maybe the dumpster fire floating down the river.
Look, there's a reason why these medical sales memes, or medical sales memes channels have like just been growing like crazy lately. It's just like, you need a little comic relief. It's a tough job, right?
Correct. Yes. Just to be like, "Oh my gosh, Judy from purchasing. Hilarious."
Judy from purchasing. Oh my God. Shout out to Mad Device Rep. That hit his memes, like they're so good. I think my favorite dynamic of all the meme channels is Mad Device Rep is, he's the king. He's the best. But my other favorite one is Mr. Med Device, because he claims to be Mad Device Rep's former associate. That's like my favorite one.
Awesome.
It's so I really love that. I really love that.
I just started following that one in the past couple days. So
his is like extra spicy. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Something spicy for a text or for a billboard, like just something that all of us would just nod and be like, Yep. And would take a picture of and post it on our team chats. That's when you know that your text and your billboard were perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Then last question for you. And actually, I just started, somebody told me to do this. I'm like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good one. So my last question to you is, you get to ask me any question you want. You get one question. What would you like to ask me? Mm-hmm. That was kind of a curveball. I don't think anybody is usually expecting me to ask them to ask me a question.
I like curveballs. Those are good.
Every President's Club winner does.
Yeah, right? I guess I would love to hear, what's the transition been like going from a field-based sales role to an entrepreneur? And looking back, if you could tell yourself, you should do this, Omar, or maybe we should, what would you say to yourself when you were looking at this big career change, and how is it going?
Yeah. So I think it's going great. Obviously, if it wasn't, I wouldn't continue doing it. I think so. The transition was interesting. I think the biggest thing, and I think this is the thing that people underestimate going from working for a company versus to starting your own, is the importance of two things. One is being organized, and number two, just like managing your confidence. right? There's this narrative among entrepreneurs like, oh, like college is a waste of time and don't go work for corporations or companies. I disagree with that, actually. Like if you look at working for a company, I learned a lot working at these various companies in terms of how do you manage people, how do you set, like the same things that I used to kind of, people groan about, like setting KPIs or quotas, everything, they exist for a reason. I do it in my company now. And so I think those things are really important. So I think the big thing I would tell people is like, when you're in these roles, like, don't take it for granted, take advantage of it. Like for the reps who are there, you work at Medtronic, it's the world's largest med device company. Take advantage of the opportunity to learn from people, spend time with people, learn how do they manage things, that's probably the biggest thing. And then going back, your other question was like, what advice I would give myself? Was that the question?
Yes.
What advice would I give myself? I don't know if I would change anything, but like, it's probably take more risks, and just learn more. I mean, I could go back, and if I can go back and do something, I mean, taking more risks and just trying to learn more. I think being a learning machine, reading books, going to conferences, getting mentorship, it's extremely, extremely underrated. Actually, I got the perfect one. This is the one thing that I would have gone back to. I would have gone back and spent more money sooner on my own education. It took me until I was, 29 or 30 to realize like, oh, you know what? My self-development, my career growth is not like my company's job or my manager. That's my job. And so I wish, and I didn't learn a lot of the coaching stuff. I didn't learn until like maybe a couple years ago. But the best money I spent at the time, it felt like a lot of money, but like I was spending like $500 or $600 a month working with like a sort of an executive / life coach. That was like, I worked with him for 2 years every month or every week for 2 years. Best money I ever spent. And I wish I spent time thinking like if somebody wants help, like you'd be surprised. Like, I don't know. Look, you're a President's Club winner. If somebody came to you and said, hey, look, can I pay you X amount of money for a month where every week you just coach me? You'd probably do it. And you'd probably do a really good job of it, right?
I do it now and I don't get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, I'm thinking about this wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say people should go get coached, because that if there's a trick to time travel, it's getting learning through apprenticeship, learning through coaching. You cannot, there's even the great investors, they say they're the most valuable skills in the world. They cannot be learned in a classroom. They have to be learned through an apprenticeship, So that's what I recommend.
Strong ending. I love it.
Yeah, strong. Finishing strong.
Really strong. That's super cool.
Alycia, I was
going to
say,
get a coach.
How can people find you online? At least where the places that you want to be found online.
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm based in Colorado, but connections and mentors and mentees in very different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out, any questions. It's just nice to meet other medical device reps, and I'm just grateful that you have this platform, because it's non-traditional. But look at the following that it has cultivated. There is a huge need for this market segment you've identified. And it's just great to be a part of it. So
absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much for like spending time from your busy day to come on and like share these fantastic pearls. We'll put your LinkedIn link in the show notes below. So that being said, thank you all for listening. If you haven't done already, we're the #1 show in MedTech for a reason. Take a second, hit the subscribe button, because we release episodes that we do not normally promote. So that way you get notified of those episodes. And then it takes 1 second, 5 stars. And if you're on Apple, write the review. It's very important if you're on Apple to write that review. So give us 5 stars, write a review. I love you. Mwah. We'll see you all on Instagram. I'm Omar Khateeb. This is another episode of the State of MedTech, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you for enjoying another epic episode of the State of MedTech. If you're feeling inspired and love this episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. And be sure to give us 5 stars and write a short review, because that helps more people discover this amazing community of ours. If you're a company who has a executive that you'd like to be on the show, or perhaps you want to sponsor one of the episodes, shoot us an email at hello@khateebandco.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.